Welcome to the Zag Talk Podcast Live. My name is Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And for those of you who have been teaching, and maybe today was your last day, or maybe yesterday or Monday, or for some of you, I know the anticipated bad weather actually might hold you back from having school tomorrow or Friday. So we just want to say welcome. For those of you who do not know, my name is Guy Danhoff, and I've been the host of the Zag Talk Podcast Live, now going over a year, as well as a newer podcast that's done through Missouri Healthy Schools, which is called the MHS Podcast Live. I also host that show. Ironically enough, I hosted that show last night. Tonight, we've got a very special show for you. Tonight, we're going to review what a beginner's guide to hosting a podcast is all about. And without any further ado, I want to bring in my co-host. My first one is going to be Sean Nevills. And Sean, how are you, my friend?
What's up, everybody? Happy holidays.
Absolutely.
Happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating. If you're celebrating and rolling into 2023, good to see you guys. Good to be on tonight.
Well, all I can say is, why don't you let everyone know what you the podcast that you host, how long you've been doing it. It should be pretty cool.
Yes, the Shape America podcast, which is a platform for our health and physical educators to learn, be engaged throughout the year. Obviously, we know, the Shape convention is not a one-off event. This is an opportunity to continue those conversations well into the year. And I've been hosting this since October 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a pandemic PE year. So when I was a part of Shape that year, decided to relaunch the podcast and, really be engaged in those in virtual learning or any kind of setting and just trying to make it through that year.
Absolutely. And Sean, I just want to say, I think I was like on one of your first 3 episodes of 4 going way back when. And one thing I learned from you as a host, oh my gosh, you got to do your homework on your guests, which you did a fantastic job. So with that, let's bring on our third co-host, and this is going to be really fun, all the way from New Jersey. Let's bring her on. Here we go. We've got Michelle Huff in the house. Michelle, how are you doing?
Hi, everyone. What's going on, Guy? What's going on, Sean? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And there's some breaking news. I understand that you're going to be co-hosting in 23 the Zag Talk podcast with me. What are your thoughts on that venture?
I mean, I didn't say this to you earlier, Guy, but Sean, Guy called me an intermediate today at podcasting. That was a big deal. I am stepping my game up.
Hey, so if you're intermediate, then I'm advanced, right?
You see me get a little smirk, but I was you just called me an intermediate. So, I was noted.
Okay, good. Hey, congratulations. Well, I'm looking forward to you two working together in 2023 then.
I mean, exactly. So thank you, Guy. I'm excited, and we're just going to get a lot out there and advocate for health and PE and everything that we believe in and stand for. So I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And hey, if you're live right now, you can send us anything you want in the comments. Judy Lobianco, the boss, is super excited for tonight, and heard that there could be a little Zag bomb going on there. And of course, Michelle, everyone knows we don't even call you Michelle sometimes. You're simply just known as Jersey. So absolutely, Judy, we're so glad that you're here again. We're really excited. So we kind of want to get started and get right into it. One of the questions that, we have for folks is, what specifically are you wanting to learn from tonight's podcast? If you are online, you can feel free to type in, your comments, or if you're watching the replay, also type in the comments, because we'll be happy to go back and look at those, and we can use that even for future episodes. But we want to kind of get a sense of maybe, what you're looking for, because we're going to unpack a lot of things tonight. And then also the other question we have, and this is a really good one. Sean came up with this one. Sean, why don't you ask this question?
Yeah, so when you listen to podcasts, there's a whole bunch of genres out there to listen to. What is the content you are looking for as you're listening to those podcasts? Is it for entertainment? Are you trying to wind down in your evening, or you just need something in the middle of the day to keep you going? Is it for education? Are you trying to learn something? Are you trying to gain some insight on things? That probably be your news genre, right? So, as you're typing in the chat or as you're here, think about that, the content you listen to, or one of some of the most frequently listened to podcasts you have, and where they fall in line with this question.
So, Sean, I'm going to actually hit you up with that question right now. Are there any podcasts that you listen to right now, or you have been maybe over the past year?
Yeah. Oh, it was funny. Spotify did my little top 5 thing, right? So I listened to, my top one was the Joe Rogan Experience. And just
Yeah.
because he brings a lot of great guests on, there's a lot of different opinions. If you're anybody who just likes to just hear different sides of a story or anything, that's a great podcast to listen to. And then the rest over a whole bunch of sports podcasts. The Right Time with Bomani Jones, ESPN Daily. So, of course, I got to get my sports fix on.
Well, absolutely. Michelle, how about you? Is there any podcast that you listen to or you've been listening to maybe over the past year?
I like Brene Brown.
Okay.
I like her as an author, and now I'm starting to listen to her podcast, and it's all about empathy and emotions, and that's like right up my level. So I like listening to that. Calms me down in the morning. And like another podcast of mine is Prayer in the Morning. That's always half an hour. So like there you get all different types of podcasts. So
absolutely, and this should come as no surprise to the two.
I should also say both your podcasts.
Right.
There we go.
There was, was a right answer to this question. I think you almost missed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, listening to Judy's this morning too, like it literally motivated me for the rest of my day about how we need to show love to our kids. So I'm excited to, potentially have her speak a word today.
Yeah, and for me, it should come no surprise to either one of you. The main one that I listen to all the time is done by Social Media Marketing Examiner, and they constantly have got experts on every single week, and they constantly talk about different aspects of social media. So I really keep up to date on all the different trends, the shifts. In my world, I would call it zagging, the different zag moves, how they're curating content, creating content, across all the different platforms. It's just really interesting. I've actually used their annual report that they put together. It's very, very, very lengthy. And it's a report that I actually put it into my book last year that they put out and they published. So yeah, this is a podcast that I listen to. As you're going to find out, there's different ways people listen to podcasts. For me, I got a 35-minute commute to my school every day. So it's a perfect time for me to go ahead and listen to those podcasts on that commute. So I just thought everyone would like to know that. All right. So we're going to kind of dive right into it. And actually, Judy actually chimed in. Let's go ahead with this. And this is good. Michelle, why don't you take this and let everyone know her comment?
Okay. As a lifelong admin, I want my teachers to find a path to learning. A podcast is one of my many paths that advance their practice. Absolutely. Because it's not only like they're able to, like, it's great, but like Sean, I listened to you today. I listened to Judy today. And it was nice. Like I reflected 2 years ago, like from that moment that I was first like a guest on your podcast to, now Judy's beginning hers. And I'm loving it. I can't wait to be a guest on hers as well. Boss.
And to that point, what Judy's saying in there, it's, and the new term we're here with podcasts is pod class, right? Is that it's an avenue for people to learn. And that's essentially,
right.
Definitely love Judy's last point. It's about advanced learning. So listeners in the audience are learning something. They're taking something away by listening to that podcast.
Absolutely. And I also like what you said. A podcast doesn't cost anything, just time. And I couldn't agree with that more. And yeah, absolutely. Again, she says, thanks, Michelle. All right. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We'll start with this. Michelle, let you kick us off with this disclaimer.
Okay, so before we begin, we just put this disclaimer out there. Before creating or using your own podcast in an educational setting, just please check with your school's social media policy. Some policies might not be up to date. So, you just want to make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's. Okay.
Yeah, and we wanted to put that in there because it was so important. Again, if you're going to use this in a school setting, even though really what we're trying to say is if you are part of like Shape America, Mo Shape, or your own, or NJ Shape, whatever state you may be affiliated with, if you're looking to do a podcast, um, you know, we just want to teach you some of the basics. That's why we say this is kind of a beginner's course. And what we kind of want to start with is a big picture. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. But when you look at the number of podcast listeners, the numbers are staggering. You all know that I'm really big in data and data drives decisions. And you look at the numbers, right now in November of 22, we're at 383 million podcast listeners globally. It's expected by the end of the year to jump to 424. But here's what's even more staggering. If you look at the end of 23 numbers, it's going to go up to 467 million. And by the end of 2024, you're looking at somewhere around the neighborhood of 505 million. In other words, you're seeing a drastic increase of listeners. And here's some other fun facts. 78% of Americans are aware of podcasting. Over 162 million, which is over half of what the number is right now, in the US alone have listened to a podcast. 41% of people in the US tune to a podcast every month. 23 do it weekly. And then this is another big one. 79% of people in the US listen to a podcast from their smartphone. This is something that's really easy. You could be, taking a walk. There's so many different applications that you can consume content. I know for myself, I'm in that 22% of people listen to a podcast while driving. Again, I've got that longer commute. So when we look at the numbers, and part of the reason why we wanted to do this episode was to say, look, this is a great way for you to get your content, to get your ideas, to have a discussion on how you can go about this. And so with that, when you look at the platforms, and Sean, I'll let you take this on the share and market. Is no surprise because I know that this was big for Shape America, but kind of what are the top four, most popular platforms?
Yeah, so looking at those top four platforms, obviously, the top two, Apple Podcasts being one, and then Spotify, two of the biggest markets out there for music in general, right? And then when podcasts came onto the scene, they both picked up that as well for content. So definitely Apple and Spotify leading the charge there. And then the next one is the web browser. So if you're not using your smartphone or using one of those things, you're using a platform. I can tell you for the Shape America podcast, we use Podomatic as our web browser platform for the podcast. And then also you have Google Podcasts, which is always, Google itself is definitely a name in the tech space.
Yeah, and also just a comment that Judy just made, that there's no doubt that we've redefined the way teachers grow and communicate and learn, right? And that's what's great about the podcast. Like anyone who's on right now, like Judy's doing, she can be typing away, in the comments, and we can have an ongoing discussion. If you want to ask us questions at any time during this podcast, feel free to do it. We'll answer them. But that's what's nice about doing this live format. The fact that it's also, on camera or on video. I'm a real big believer in that. I mean, it's my background has always been this style of platform. But to kind of wrap up the most popular platforms, here's what's also staggering. 50% of people between ages of 12 to 34 listen to podcasts every month. That is a huge number. Again, the audience is there. They're just waiting for the content and to trust them. And of course, an average weekly US podcast listens to 8 episodes. So again, when you're thinking about this, your podcast and how you can be thinking about how many episodes you're going to have. I know for the Missouri Healthy Schools MHS cast, we're going to have exactly 10 because those are the 10 months of a school year. We're not going to do one in June. We're not going to do one in July. But we will do them, the other 10 months. So anyways, some of those stats. And Sean, I want to just break away from this slides for a second, just come back to you. Sean, when you were first, doing the podcast, kind of what was the purpose behind Shape America wanting to get into the space?
So here's the thing, guy, and it's what you've always, I would say, taught me, right? It's about call to action. The thing about the Shape America podcast, it had existed before Sean Nevills came onto the scene. Matter of fact, the last episode that was recorded before I came on was in April of 2019. And then there was a break up until 2020, and I recorded the next podcast in October 2020. So there was some time off. But why did it matter then? Again, it's because people needed content, and they weren't able to be out and getting anymore, right? The world had closed down. The way of life we know was different. So everybody was listening to something or needed something to listen to. And that's where I don't want to say I took advantage, but I took the opportunity to relaunch the podcast, be a part of it, and just share with the health and physical education community.
Yeah, and with that, Michelle, why don't you take this? Judy just, kind of chimed in, and I thought this would be kind of interesting.
I thought she was intermediate. You gotta hit that mute button.
As everything's crashing down. Okay. So wait. So Judy. Okay, at 53 years old, I ventured into podcasts. An old dog does learn new tricks, especially with how easy it is. If I can do it, anyone can. If you have something valuable and appropriate to share, do it. And just to just go off what Judy said, even if like you're nervous to do something, it's just try it. You could just try. It doesn't have to be as long as Sean Nevills. Like it could be a couple minutes. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone, but like each of us has a message and a purpose and a piece and a part in this world. So like hearing Judy's, I was meant to listen to those today, and I was meant to be reminded of like, how much fun we were having. Like we were having so much fun just talking like shop with each other, Sean, and not even knowing each other. And look at us now 2 years later. And that was from a podcast. So
to a great point of what Judy said, though, and great job there, Michelle, kind of articulating that. It's about having something valuable to share, right? If you have a passion, and you feel you have a voice, that's what a podcast is for. It's for people that have a passion and need a platform to be able to share.
Absolutely. And Michelle, I'm going to bring up a couple more stats, and I thought these were pretty fascinating. And when we look at it, go ahead and let everyone know about this, because this is pretty cool when you look at the popular genres.
So it holds true to many of our other social media platforms with its rankings, but it shows here that 22% of our podcast listeners in the U.S. prefer comedy as a genre. News is the second most popular, followed by true crime, sports, and then health and fitness. So we are right up there in the top 5, just like we are in numerous other social media platforms. So it's about kind of finding your niche, and then let's dive in there because there's so many people to reach and, advocate for.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, just to remind our audience, when we did a couple of podcasts a few months ago on TikTok for beginners, you look at the numbers, entertainment was the number one reason why people are on, TikTok. Number 2, ironically enough, was dance. Well, we know how many curriculums have dance in it. And again, people are looking for that content. And then number 5 is, again, health and fitness. Mm-hmm. So the nice thing is, we're in a genre that people are looking for content, which is why I think it's such an ideal time now as we head into 23, that maybe, our viewers or our listeners might find creating a podcast for them in 23 may be the thing to do.
I don't know, guy. I might be breaking out into comedy soon, man. I don't know. I might have to break off.
And again, that's just showing, again, the numbers. You can see it right there. It's really simple. So let's kind of get into to one of the big questions we always get asked. And that is, Sean, I know you've been asked this question. I've been asked this question, but how long are podcast episodes? And we'll let you start the conversation, and then we'll go to Michelle.
Yeah, for sure. So even looking at this chart here in this graph here, what you see is at that, that high point, the 31% there, you're looking at in between 20 to 40 minutes, right? That's about the time you have to engage your audience and keep them engaged and get your message out, right? And for, again, using Shape America as my example, because I host that podcast, that's what we go for is 30 minutes, and if you spread your content out right, you can definitely meet that mark with 20 to 40 minutes. Past that, obviously the curve goes down, and anything in between behind that at less than 10 minutes, you're not necessarily getting your message out, you're just talking. So
Yeah, and I can say this for the Zag Talk podcast, I've tested it up to, up to an hour actually. And I have found that the curve will stay, pretty strong up to 55 minutes. And then after that, you kind of get that relationship that you see there. Again, but it's all based on, again, the content, the value of the content, the value of the information. A lot of times, some of the best podcasts that I do live in this format is because we have a lot of audience interaction. And that also adds to that. And Michelle and I will get a chance to talk about that in a little bit, because her and I have hosted now for the last 2 years what's been going on with the pre-conventions that Shape America puts on, and we kind of do a pre-convention podcast, and it's a lot of fun to do that. So with that, and let's Judy's chiming in. Let's go ahead and take this. And Michelle, you want to read this for everybody?
Let me unmute myself. And also, I just wanted to note that, like, if you got them captured by that 10 minutes, it's almost looking like you at least got them going for another 10 in these podcasts. So you're almost reaching at least another 10, 15. But yeah, so you got to hit them with something in the beginning, that's why you're going to find your audience and who you want to reach. But okay, so Judy Lobianco said, the leaders of my generation are apprehensive about the traditional reach for their membership and how they receive info. The new generation of teacher is expecting us to reach them in a different way. That's a loaded question, and I would love to bring you on.
Emphasis on expecting, and Judy, since you put it there, I'm interested in what your generation is.
Yeah. So Judy, if you got the link from Michelle, this would be a good time for you to jump on. We'll bring you on live right now to open that discussion,
resend,
because that's a really important discussion that we need to have. I know that, again, when you look at what the future professionals and the young professionals are expecting today, compared to folks, Judy, because you and I are nearly around the same age. It's a great question. It's a great statement. It's something that we really need to discuss. And, and I know that she follows up with, I keep my podcast to 10 minutes or less, especially, for my peer group, which are administrators, they want it and run. And that's going to be really good. So yeah, go ahead, Michelle, send a link to her. She just sent that to us. And yeah, definitely a mic drop. We want to discuss this. So
definitely something that is, I am inspired by Judy, that she keeps going and she is open to new things and providing any and every opportunity to allow our students to succeed in any avenue. And I respect, and I just love that she doesn't have to do any of this. She just does it from the heart. And like, that's servant leadership. That's like why we're all here. And I can't wait till she gets on this. So I'm sending it.
Yeah, I was on a podcast last night for MHS, that we did. We actually celebrated 11 scholarships that went out for schools that were involved in CPAP here in Missouri. And Sherry Beeler was on. And Sean, as you know, she's retired, and yet the same kind of heart that Judy has. Why is she still serving? Why is she involved? Is because you talk about, again, servant leadership to this profession. Sherry had never been on a podcast before. Neither had our other guest either. But by the end of it, I can tell you this, they absolutely were pros all the way through, as they understood that this platform is just about a conversation. This isn't like some formal presentation. This is informational, but again, it's an information exchange. So if you've got questions, I see that we got more listeners coming on. This is exciting, and viewers, feel free to go right to the comments, ask us questions. Now, what I want to dive in as Judy gets prepared to come on is I want to just show just a couple more slides, and then we'll move on to the really meat of tonight's podcast. And there's just a real simple example. You can see the duration of episodes. Again, I think you got to fit, what works for you. Kind of the sweet spot is that between 20 to 40-minute range. That's what all the data is telling us. I know for the Missouri Healthy School ones, that's what I do. I know, Sean, you just said that. I have tested the boundaries between 40 and 60, like tonight's will be in that neighborhood. The Zag Talk podcasts are always in that range. But again, as long as they're staying under 60, again, I've seen good success, again, as long as we're on point and on topic, and especially in a very lively and engaging discussions. And that's what makes a great podcast.
And Guy, to your point again, you said it. It's a conversation. That's the key word.
Right.
People don't understand they're learning because they're just taking it as a conversation. But if it's scripted well and it's planned, and you have great people on, the conversation lends to the learning, right? And it can go past that 20 to 40-minute mark we're talking about, as long as it's a conversation and people are engaged, stay engaged.
Yeah, you know what? Pam asks a great question. And Pam, I'm going to share with you a very profound story. I'm going to go ahead and get out of that view. I'm going to go straight to us on close up. So here we are. When doing a podcast, do we need professional style equipment? Well, we're actually going to talk about that because to some degree, the answer would be yes and no. I mean, it's like anything else. Do you want to have good video? Again, most laptops come with, great cameras today. So as far as that goes, that's an easy thing. Like, for example, me, I'm using, for me, my microphone, my ears. This just came from the iPhone 12 that I got way back when. Sean, and yeah, Sean's got the daddy mic, and he's got, whatever they call those,
like $30 headphones on Amazon, and the mic was about like 20. So,
and in case you're wondering, yes, on certain things, depending on what it is, yeah, I've got my actual studio cans, we call them, by Sennheiser. I very rarely ever use it for this very reason. Actually, don't need to. So, Pam, to answer your question, you just want to make sure that you get good video and good audio. And most of the time, honestly, the podcast styles are going to be audio only. So you don't have to worry about video. I just do the video because I want people to see us. I want people to see our expressions, to see the emotion. When we laugh, we want to laugh. I mean, if we're going to tear up once in a while, because there's some tear up stories, so it's a great question, Pam, that you ask. And all I can say, it's just a great question. So, Sean, I want to throw this to you right now, because this is a big question, and I'll leave this up for people to see, but here it is. What are some things that you think about when creating a podcast? This was a list that, Michelle came up with that we talked about as a group, but I kind of want everyone to see this. And again, I'm going to leave it up there so you can screenshot this. You can do what you want. But again, I'm just going to go straight to Sean, to you on this question. What are the things that you think about when you create a podcast? Because really, that's a big question that everyone wants to know.
Right, for sure. And the first thing you put there is, can you put that back up real quick
Yeah.
for me, Guy?
Yep, here we go. There you go.
You can leave it up. Yeah, so make sure your message is related to your niche, okay? I am a health and physical educator.
Right.
I'm not going to all of a sudden decide I'm going to dive into the 22% and start doing stand-up comedy, right? So fit who you are. Let the podcast be about you, right? And then revise your message, right? Get specific. So if it's guest-based, what do people want to hear about? So if you are an expert in that field and you're creating a podcast about it, what knowledge do you bring to it? If you're bringing on guests, what knowledge do they bring to it? And make sure you revise that message, be specific about it. So each episode is unique and you're not sounding the same from episode 1 to 2 to 3 to 4.
Yeah. And then I think you examine your podcast editing tools and video format options, and certainly consider what you want your audience to get from your message. I know that, one of the big things that we do, Sean, you and I, and Michelle, because Michelle's co-hosted a few with me now, and that is, we do a lot of planning. Like we walk through, we script out the content that we want to have, like these slides, like some of the banners that we bring on, like I'm about to show you a resource, just to let everyone's mind get open and free for a second. So I'm going to switch screens for a second, and I'm going to answer, like, what are the things to think about and even talk about? So I'm going to show you a body of work that I've done in the past year And this has all been through one of the channels that we're able to stream to from time to time is Shape America. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up right now. This is right now live from the Shape America YouTube channel. And I'm going to go ahead and just, leave that up there. But I want to show you some of the titles. Like tonight, A Beginner's Guide to Hosting a Podcast. The one before that, we did on tips on how sport management and PE majors can build their brand on social media. Michelle Huff and I, again, we did TikTok for beginners. Also, we talked about using CapCut. 2021 Most Shaped Teacher of the Year, we talked about with Drew Burris, keys to effective video storytelling. If you look at that thumbnail of TikTok for beginners, that's actually my daughter who's 17. And we brought her on as a guest speaker with Michelle Huff for that episode because my daughter has seen one of her TikTok videos that she created generate over 2.2 million views. And, she's made over 400 videos and she's got a whole bunch of followers and things like that. And then you can see right here, we did a very special cover story on Jessica Matheson from Minnesota. And it was just a really fascinating on her life change. And also with Phil from New York, who was also a Teacher of the Year this past year, National Teacher of the Year. And then this was pretty cool. We did a celebration with all 5 National Teachers of the Year. This is one of the most viewed ones that we did. We tied this together with Lisa Paulson, who is Shape America's Physical Activity Council coordinator. And we put together something in combination with Play All May. It was fantastic with our guests and it got a lot of play. So you can see these different types of podcasts that we've done. We've actually, done where we've celebrated some people. And of course, there's the Shape NOLA preview that Michelle and I did. And then we've done Women's History Month. We've also, this one was perhaps one of the hardest podcasts I've ever done, as we celebrated the legacy and life of Dr. Kathleen Kinderfather out of Missouri during Women's History Month. And then one of my other favorite ones was on Beth Kirkpatrick, again, celebrating Women's History Month. So you can see all the different types of idea. And of course, yes, absolutely. We had Black History Month spotlight and we had DC, Darren Cockrell, and Sean Nevills was also part of that. And so you can just see these, and these are easy to find, where you can just go like to YouTube and you just click on where it says live. The other thing I would tell you to do is hit the subscribe button. And that way you can know when these episodes come out. The other thing you can do is hit the notifications tab right here at the top where you've got the, where you can ring the bell. And that way, every time that there's going to be an episode, that you'll get notified for it. So anyways, these are just some of the ideas, that I have. But again, it's all based on what you want to have. And Michelle, now that you've got involved with this, and because you've been part of some of these and you've been part of the planning, I'm going to ask you the same question. What are some of the things that you think about, like even planning for tonight, that you'd want to, share with everyone?
Well, as Sean said earlier, you always want to know who exactly you have on your podcast or, who you're interviewing. So you definitely want to do your research. Even if it's on a particular, like the Play All May, know the background of it. Preparation, like my pastor says all the time, preparation is key to life. So be prepared. I always have notes in front of me from the day I met Guy. Like even when Sean was talking, like I was reflecting off what he said. And one of my major things is just is reflecting through the process. Like I like trying new things. Like I feel like once I popped out of my comfort zone with TikTok, I'm like, hey, like why not me? If why not me? Then maybe somebody else will try. So I reflect, and sometimes I see strong improvements, and then other times I see places where I need to enhance what I'm doing. But it's all a learning growth. So, and I'm blessed to be able to do with such strong leaders that help and that I can grow and learn from.
Absolutely. And with that, what I wanted to do is just, change over and just show you one other, things of ideas. If you look and see, I just now moved over to the Missouri Healthy Schools. And this is really interesting is that, this is my 5th year working with Missouri Healthy Schools as working with their outreach, as well as being their digital media manager. And one of the things that we proposed this past year to the CDC directly, we have a national call with them, once a month. And one of the things that we, pitched to them was about doing a podcast, which is so different than doing your workshops or the trainings that we do, or the Zoom meetings that we do. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to take our professionals, our experts, and get them to talk in just more of a conversational tone about things. So for example, if you look at it, we just finished our 3rd one yesterday. So we've kicked off in October, and that was on mental health. Specifically, it was on trauma-informed approaches. That kicked things off for us. And what was nice about that is we had multiple guests on. And so we had some experts. Then we also had some data so we can triangulate things that school districts are doing. The second one in November was done on diabetes, National Diabetes Month. We talked about diabetes management, and it was really fascinating. What we learned in that discussion was simply the fact that the technology has far exceeded the way that students are now collecting their glucose or getting the glucose readings while in school. That is actually superseding the policies in some of the school districts. And becomes a headache for nurses in schools in terms of the relationships with the parents, in terms of how to manage diabetes. And so that was another specific podcast that we had. And then of course, last night, we had one that was done on CSPAP, which is the comprehensive school physical activity program. We talked about the 5 components, but really we highlighted the great work that has been going on in different school districts. Also, we got a chance to highlight the fact that Missouri gave away, through Missouri Healthy Schools, through a CDC funding, 11 scholarships to 11 schools. And again, we could have never have had that type of conversation if it wasn't for having this type of platform. So when you ask the question, what are the different things you can do with the podcast? There's just so many things. This is why I'm involved in a couple of them. And so now what I want to do is I want to bring in a question that Pam just asked. As a state organization, would you recommend having a consistent host? And with that, Sean, I'm going to let you, take first crack at
it. The answer is yes, because you want somebody to gain that steam, right? I mean, think about it. Think about some of the best podcasts you listen to now. Was that person relevant when they first started? Did they know what they were doing? How did they build and grow? So you want that consistent voice, especially if that voice is effective. If that, if they're doing, if the message is on point with that host, yes, you want that consistent voice. You want that person speaking for your organization.
Well, and the other part of it really is also the planning. It's like, I'm involved in these podcasts. I'm not an expert on most of the things we talk about, but what I am an expert on is hosting. There's skill sets that go into hosting. There's skill sets that go into, like I'm doing, and running all the media behind the scenes and running the things that flash on and flash off the screen, and especially doing it live like we're doing it. That can be very nerve-wracking for people. And so to answer your question, Pam, yes, it would be really helpful. But I want to bring in our own Chris Staley right now from Missouri. He's our chair of marketing communications. And what's great is, we actually have a pretty interesting way that we do things in Missouri on how he and I kind of divide and conquer even on some of the types of content. He's going to share with you some of the things we did in 22, but more importantly, the things that he'll be hosting separate from what I'm hosting, in 23. So Chris, with that, let's bring you on, my man. Chris, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm here, guys. National Signing Day. It's been a busy day.
What? Let's go, Coach.
Come on, wide receivers, Coach.
Yeah, that's me. But
yeah,
I've been kind of hanging out backstage. First and foremost, I think everything you guys have said is great about the podcasting. Just a fun fact, because I have to throw this in there. My favorite podcast to listen to is Skip and Uncle Sharp. You know, I like listening to them debate sports, but
Sure.
when you teach PE all day long, I don't listen to music in the car at all. I actually just listen to podcasts. I like listening to Sean Nevills' voice every once in a while. That always gets me going. But
I appreciate that, Skip. I appreciate that, Skip.
There you go, Uncle Sharp there. But real quick before I kind of talk about what we're doing at Mo Shape, I think kind of echo what Sean's response was to Pam there about having a consistent host. So one thing we did at Mo Shape a few years ago, Guy, when he moved on to a different role back in, that was 2018. So it's been 4 years now. Right. When I took over as chair of marketing communications, one of my goals was to make a weekly podcast, and we made one called the Mo Shape Minute. And we were very lucky with it took a few, episodes to really get the ball rolling. But then we got to the point to where weekly we were getting anywhere from 1,000 to 1,800 views, right. Some of them up to 2,500 views. So, and I don't think it was because of me. I think it was a mixture of, there was a consistent host. And like Guy said, there is planning behind it. Right. But once you get to the flow of how to do things, it's more just checking the boxes like, yeah, I got this, I got that. Right. But really also somebody said on the show earlier, I think Michelle and Sean both mentioned it also depends on who you bring onto your show as a guest. Right. And there's different types of podcasts, right? I like listening to like sports podcasts where they're a little controversial and like to debate, like Skip and Shannon. Like I listen to Colin Cowherd a little bit just because I think everything he says is wrong, but I like to listen to it because it's got a little bit of that, that little fire to it. So, Pam, I think as a state organization, a consistent host is very important, but that host has to 100% buy into what they're doing and enjoy what they're doing. If they're not, like I will tell you, if I'm hosting Sean on a podcast next week, Sean's already got the talking points and everything right now. We prepare at Mo Shape for a show. Let's just say like the week a show's going out, we're preparing for a show that's 3 episodes ahead. We've already got our shows locked in. So that's kind of segueing into my next thing. A lot of exciting things coming up, Guy, with Mo Shape. With you as the president, and you and I have worked together now for 6 years. Yeah. But I've been in this role of chair of marketing communications. I just renewed my term for another 3 years. So this is going on year 4 here. And I'm just really excited because we've got a lot of fun things coming out. We do have I can't release the date 100% yet. We're finalizing it tomorrow, but we will have a live end of the year 2022 recap with some very special guests from Mo Shape. So, and I just encourage people from all over the country to watch it because we may or may not have somebody that's in contention for National Teacher of the Year on the show. And I'm really excited for that. You may see Sean Nevills pop in there. You may see Guy pop in there. You never know. It's we will announce some of our guests, but we also will not announce some because we're going to make it a special guest type of thing. So that's something we started doing a couple years ago. Yeah. One of my favorite shows to do. Still to this day, my favorite podcast, and we're going to bring it back. My favorite podcast, hands down, was the podcast I hosted for Black History Month, which did feature Dr. Adriana Marshall, Sean Nevills, and DC. It was just, it was just awesome, man. Everybody was able to give each other their roses, and it was just, to me, for those that don't know my background, I taught in the inner city, Kansas City, for 3 years at a charter school, and just being able to celebrate, people with different backgrounds was awesome. The Women's History Month, just anytime we get a chance to celebrate people. My Teachers of the Year interviews that I do every year, also some of my favorite things to do because we're celebrating people. That's my thing. If there was a category, it would be celebration categories. That's my favorite thing to do. But, man, 2023 is going to be great. I know Sean and I are going to talk. We're going to collab some. We've got I'm going to do a future professional specific show. And I'm going to work on that with our future professional president, Abigail Lingle. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do probably a bi-weekly or monthly show featuring a board member where they kind of talk about what they're working on. We're going to bring back something we did a couple years ago which was really cool with Dr. Patrick Fine's convention, was the sneak peek, the Level Up 21 sneak peek. So where I will have special guests that are going to be at the convention presenting some of our sponsors. Obviously, Guy, we know what the sponsorship was like this year. Huge success. We'll have the sponsorship shows again. And it's just going to be a really exciting time. So really cool fun fact. You guys mentioned earlier the different platforms, and I actually have an Anchor account as well. I think Judy mentioned that. What's really cool is a few years ago when we started all this with the Most Shape Minute, I just went out on a limb and made an account and submitted that podcast to Spotify and Apple Music, and they accepted it. So Most Shape actually has a podcast on Spotify and Apple Music that anytime I upload a podcast, Spotify and Apple Music has given me the okay, like they automatically post it. So they've reviewed 4 or 5 of our episodes. So we're going to take a huge advantage of that, because I think, obviously we know not everybody can watch live.
Right.
And even like some people like listening to podcasts in their car, like Sean and Michelle and I, and we've all said, it's everybody has Spotify or Apple Music, right? And if they don't, well, you need to get it. But I think it's really cool. Like, you're at the gym, if you like to listen to podcasts while you're on the treadmill or the elliptical, or you like driving, listen to podcasts. We're going to definitely take advantage of Most Shape being on the 2 biggest platforms. I mean, you saw earlier in the stats, Apple Music #1, right, and Spotify #2. So, man, I'm just excited. We are very blessed here at Most Shape to have such awesome members that support us, an awesome board. Dr. Tom Lowry as our executive director supporting us, and you as our president, man. We're gonna go into 2023 pretty hot, and we're not gonna slow down. So try and keep up, everybody, because it's gonna be a good one.
Well, Chris, thanks. And I want you to stay on though for a little bit on this next discussion, because I want to bring on Judy. And Judy, we're bringing Judy on because I want to unpack a little bit more about this, and also to tie it into Pam's question, which is a great question. Thank you, Pam, for asking it. But we're going to bring Judy on because Judy has just launched a podcast, and I want everyone to hear, how she felt beforehand, planning, thinking about it. Do I have the courage to do it? And Judy, I'm going to bring you on right now. And there she is. Judy Lobianco is in the house.
Hello, everybody.
The one and only.
So, Judy.
Hello, Sean. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Guy. Hi.
What's up?
I know. She's in the house. The boss from New Jersey is in the house. Judy, let's paint a picture for people really quick, because only you and I can have this conversation, because you and I lived it together. If you think back to 2019, your presidency for Shape America, at that time, and Chris, don't laugh too loud, but at that time, we were just talking about, shooting short video content off our phone and posting it, on our Twitter accounts and Facebook. And I remember, Judy then started to do that. And of course, ever since then, I mean, oh my gosh, I mean, she's like content creator. As far as administrators go, Judy, you've been, I would say, definitely one of those pioneers. And here's the other thing. We know that when you look back, those early ones, let's just face it, they're not that great. But what we learn over time, and this is why, we wanted you on the show tonight specifically, is here it is. And you brought it up earlier. You speak to administrators a lot, as do I in the circles that I run with my podcast. Obviously, I just share that, especially with the Missouri Healthy Schools and the CDC.
Yeah.
So talk to us about, your podcast, and let everyone know. I know you're going to be very vulnerable. You're going to tell it like it is.
Yeah.
But what has that experience been like? And then also finish out with, if you would encourage other people to do the same, and why.
Yeah. I thank you so much, Guy, for doing this. And Sean, good to see you. Michelle and Chris, thank you so much for being leaders in this effort. You got to be humble in what you don't know. And be humble in owning what you don't know, right? Having been in the profession for 30 years, it's very humbling to evolve in trying to stay current in what you don't know, and serving the teacher of today, right? Especially as an administrator who is there to serve and support and promote health and physical education in particular, right? So to be 53 years old and start a podcast is unheard of, right? The fear of it, the intimidation of it, the not knowing of it, right? But what most folks don't know that are in my sect of the community and what are my age or my generation is that social media makes it easy for you to make this simple for yourself, right? And so Chris mentioned Anchor. It walks you through the steps of how to do this for yourself. And as long as your message is relevant and appropriate for our profession, and it resonates for us and for our children, you're going to do just fine. You know, you're not looking to knock it out of the park with 1 million views all at once, right?
Right.
You build an audience and you say, look, if what I say resonates for the people that are my audience, it's going to grow, right? And so you put the topics out there. You say, look, Judy LoBianco wants to talk to my people. So let me teach administrators how to observe in physical education who might not be, certified in my field. That's already got 100 views, right? So let's talk about how to do an appropriate professional development plan. And let me help you with that based on my experience, right? When you use life experience and you leverage the power of your experiences and your knowledge on social media, particularly around the podcast, I think it's really important. And I myself have kept my podcasts under 10 minutes.
Right.
And Guy, you know this as well as I do. When you're talking to an administrator, all they have is 10 minutes. I guarantee
That's
you.
true. That's true.
So,
Very
so
true.
that's my soundbite to the world. And you got to get it in as fast as you can and as fast as we talk in New Jersey, under 10 minutes. So it's been a joy to be able to be a continued learner of my profession, even in the decade of my 50s. So I just salute the work you're doing, Guy, and you've educated me, and Sean, you've educated me, and Michelle, you've inspired me, and Chris, obviously, as a leader, you've inspired me, and it's been just a joy to be able to be part of this journey.
Yeah, and Judy, when you were thinking about doing this podcast specifically for administrators, how did you decide on the topics, and how would you pick your guests?
Right. So I'm an educated, certified professional content expert in health and physical education. And in New Jersey, and I suspect beyond, that there are people who are making decisions about health and PE across this country who are not necessarily certified in our content.
Right.
And so my mission is to help them learn about who we are and what is needed. And the fundamentals of that are, why do we need funding? How come we have to advocate so hard for student wellness? And why is it important? And why does physical activity mean so much for kids? And then ultimately, how can you go into a physical education and health teacher's classroom and give them meaningful, relevant feedback about what it is they're actually doing so that they get better? Because any health and PE teacher can tell you who's a champion, we don't need someone throwing out the ball. We don't need somebody who's doing bad practice and saying, I don't want my principal in my classroom. No, we want your principal in your classroom. So let's teach them how to be there and give you something that's going to be helpful to you, right? So that's what inspired me.
Wow. That's Judy, all I want to say is, again, I want to just congratulate you again on doing something that, let's just be honest, because I know we've talked about it, offline, that it's always scary when you first started. I'm not going to lie to you. I was nervous 2 months ago when I did the very first podcast that was being sponsored by the CDC. I mean, and yet I've been doing podcasts for a few years. Like, why would I even be nervous? But, and it's just because, you want to make sure you get the right message. You want to make sure you got the right guest. You got the right narrative. I know one thing that we've done tremendously well, and this is a discussion that all of us have had, is the ability to break away from silos, getting more people involved, on our podcast. Like tonight, we've got 5 people here. So we bring in the different perspectives. And I know in a lot of the podcasts, it helps to hear different perspectives. I know, like yesterday, we talked about CSPAP. Well, I just didn't have on a school nurse who's an expert. And yes, she had a chance to share her story, but we also brought on Shirley Beeler. And why? Because Sherry is our CSPAP facilitator and trainer. And we want to, again, bring to where we can get these discussions, and also using data. And as schools continue to collect more data and sharing that data and sharing of ideas, and even like this, doing an open platform, so that you can see each other, because I love that part of the visual communication when you really look at, effective communication, which is why I like TED Talks so much. But I love the fact we can have comments. I love the fact that we can just bring guests on in a New York Minute. We can pop in the right people at the right time. That's why I love this platform. So for me, I love, not using Anchor, although have used it in the beginning, and it's a great platform. I think it's great, especially if you're starting out. But for me, I love the visual piece. I love the live. I'm comfortable with live, and I love like our live shows. And then that way, again, we can repackage them and put them out. And then again, a lot of times we'll see anywhere from 2 to sometimes 10 times more views when we repackage.
That's a beautiful comment. And Guy, and I've gone on YouTube, and I've got a YouTube channel, and that's been interesting too, right? Like, what platform is the platform that's going to work? Like, use several. It doesn't matter. Use as many as you can, right? Have a megaphone as wide as you can. YouTube's Anchor. It doesn't matter. As long as your message is something that resonates with community, Guy, it's something that you've really taught me is so relevant and appropriate and meaningful and relevant. And whether it's a 10-minute video on YouTube and you get subscribers, and you go to Anchor and you get whatever, it really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, the teacher on the ground has a lot of different ways that they interact with content. And our purpose, I think, for me, is to make sure that the very struggling teacher gets as much information as they can to get just one niche better, right? And the champion teacher gets one niche better to be even more better. Right. And I think that if we cast that wide net of YouTube or Anchor or Snapchat or TikTok or Twitter, whatever it is, Guy, what you've taught me is, no matter what it is, if you've got something meaningful, appropriate to say, that megaphone is huge, and it's important, and it elevates the profession across the country. So bam, right? Mic drop, bam.
Absolutely. And Chris, I want to bring you into this because, Judy, one of the things that we have learned collectively, and I have to say this because I've learned and Chris has learned, Sean, we've all learned, and Michelle, because you've been part of our team now for a few years, also with media at Shape America nationally, especially like Shape NOLA, me going back all the way to Shape Tampa. The thing that we're learning, and Chris, what I'm excited about is like our future professionals, it's not like they're just on our board. It's not like they just have a vote, but they're actually given a microphone. Yep. Chris, speak to that, because I know this year it's going to look like no other year in our history, because our future professional president is going to take center stage leading a lot of these messages and things. So talk a little bit about that and why that's so important, Chris, that this team and you have specifically decided this was one of the big pushes of 23 for Moshe.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that started when I was in college, right? I graduated from the University of Central Missouri. I was the physical education club president for 3 years, and just so many things, right? And I've been going to our state convention, it seems like forever now, since I was a freshman in college, right? And then I was even able to go to a national convention the last year. It was actually AFERD when it was in St. Louis, because college students in the state of Missouri got to go for free if we volunteered to help. So fun fact, my job, by the way, was to escort Carl Lewis and Jackie Joyner-Kersee around, because they were there for they were part of
pretty cool.
The national. That was my job as a college student, and I've got pictures of Carl Lewis and Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and man,
you're my hero.
Yeah, fun fact. So this may go over Judy and Michelle's head, but at the same time, if you guys remember this, it was in St. Louis. The Rams were still a thing, all that. Comic-Con was going on at the same time, right next to the national convention.
Yeah.
And rapper Tech-9, and I'm on the Kansas City side, he was there. So they asked for some help getting him into Comic-Con. And so I escorted Tech-9 into Comic-Con. I was like, what is going on, man? Like, I'm here to learn about PE. But anyway, so That my passion like started when I was young, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. I went to school originally to do actually this kind of stuff. I was originally going to go to school for broadcast journalism. And then I realized you don't just go to class and get to talk about sports. You have to write papers. Like to be a play-by-play announcer, first you have to write articles. It's like, nope, not me. So I found where I am. And, I see a lot of that in our current future professional president, Abigail Lingle. And here's the deal, let's talk, like we talk about sports, right? I referee high school basketball here in Missouri. And one thing we talk about is we've got to get young officials because they're starting to age out, right? The same thing happens in education. We've got to continue to get new quality teachers, right? And there's a lot going on in the media that's negative about education right now, right? There's people that think we're trying to push certain agendas. There's people that think we don't. I mean, there's always been a negative stigma about PE teachers, right? Like there's a movie like Mr. Woodcock. Like they don't make movies about math teachers and science teachers and socials. They make movies about PE teachers, right? I mean, and so the School of Rock, Jack Black even says at lunch, he goes, those that can't teach PE, right? So we need to make sure that we're working our butts off to change that mindset, right? But we're not all going to be here forever, right? Some of our greatest leaders in this country are already retired or close. Right. So we've got to get these young, influential kids to really I don't even call them kids. They're young adults. They're kids to us. Right. But they're young adults and they're passionate and we've got to show that. And I think here at Missouri, that's one thing we are priding ourselves on. Abigail and I've already talked. One thing I want to do, and we've talked about this for a couple years now, Guy, and I really want to do it. I want to personally visit every single university in the state of Missouri that has a physical education program and talk to them about Mo Shape. I think that's important because guess what? Just because maybe that university's professors or whoever does not think Mo Shape's convention is very beneficial to them, they may think so, right? That's the thing. Like people are passionate. People, there's people out there, there's future professionals out there that say, I want to be a football coach and that's what I do. And that's one of the spiels I talk to them about. Guys, where do you think I was? I was like, hey, I want to coach football. That's what I want to do. And then I got into my major and said, man, I love this stuff, And I tell my football players that all the time. The first thing I say to my football players when I get to practice is, hey, how was school today? Because I don't teach at the high school. I teach kindergarten through fifth grade PE. Not many people could say they teach kindergarten through fifth grade PE and then go coach class 6 football, right? Sean knows that's tough. That's tough, right?
Man, that's tough. I'm with you, man. It's tough to be good at two things, right? I was a head coach, still teaching PE classes, but when again, like you talk about, man, when it's about the passion, when it's about those kids, whether it's the students in the classroom or the athletes on the field, you're gonna put your best foot forward every time.
Right. And I just think also, Guy, getting those and those future professionals involved.
Yep.
All it's going to do is help them in the future getting jobs.
Yep.
One thing that I was very proud of that I did this past year in 2021 as the chair of marketing communications, Guy, it was just you and I on that team, right?
Right.
For a couple years. And then I took over and it was still, you moved on, but you were still like a liaison and mentor to me. My goal this past year is get future professionals more involved. Right. And this past year, I had one representative from every single university in the state of Missouri that has a physical education program on my committee. Yep. Now, there were some things we had high goals for that, right? We didn't get to reach all of them, but that's what we talk about is setting goals. And, I tell my football players all the time, if you chase perfection, you're going to reach excellence along the way, right? You're going to get, and we're still working, we're still learning how to do these things, but just getting these people involved. That way, our passion, the passion that Judy has, the passion that Michelle and Sean and you, Guy, and myself and Pam and the other people that are tuning in, like, we're not the only ones, right? There's college students with that love and passion. So that's why I think it's very important. We're going to get them involved. We're going to do so much fun stuff with TikTok and all that. I do say I do love myself some TikToks. I made a TikTok with my students recently. It's at 3,000 views, Michelle, just so you know. But you know, we just
How do we post it?
Yeah, the thing is, Guy, like Judy even said it. She looks up to us as leaders, but I look up to Judy as a leader, right? And we can learn so much from those 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. And so we're going to learn a lot from them, and we're going to use them. And like I said earlier, I hope they're ready to get the ball rolling because it's going to be fun.
Well, we know they are, and that's the beauty of it. And Chris, you and I have been talking with Abby for quite some time, and as you know, we have a mentor program. We're mentoring her. You're doing it on the media side. I'm doing it, obviously, to start to, think big picture. Judy, you'll be proud of this. We're so excited that, Abby will be joining me for Speak Out Day, being a future professional and triangulating our story and our voice and getting it from someone who's, a senior in college and how she sees the world and how she sees her profession from obviously the way that I see it. And anyways, it's just so exciting for us because to my knowledge, we've never had a future professional from Missouri ever attend. And so again, we're just trying to break new ground. I know some other states have done it, but I just know for us that we just feel so strongly that, we want to continue the momentum that we've got in Missouri and having our leaders speak out. And Abby has definitely been establishing herself as a leader. And the fact that she gets to work with Shape America nationally on the Student Leadership Network, we just feel so blessed. And like you said, we just kind of, relook at how we're doing things. And Judy, all I can say is, sometimes for me, when I first started in 2019, it was just your encouragement. It was your, just your faith in what we were trying to do, because we did a lot of the innovative new things. We're still doing that now, as you know, but you are definitely on my call list, and that I just talked to you the other day about some things, and I'm always checking in with you, and I'm always checking in with the Tom Lowrys, and I'm checking in, with our president for Shape America, Kim Ballard, from time to time. And why? Because you guys have lived it. I mean, you guys have just lived it, and we want perspective.
100%, Guy. And, I was a young teacher in the early 90s, right? And when I think about the profession changing and evolving, like they're looking for their information in a different way, right? Yep. Today, it's vaping in the middle school, but 30 years ago, there was no vaping. And 30 years from now, there won't be vaping. And teachers will look for the quick, appropriate, standards aligned information they'll need, and they won't get it from a book, and they won't get it from a conference. They need it now. They need it every day. They won't need it once a year. And I think what you're trying to do, and what Shape America is trying to do, is to give teachers relevant, appropriate, meaningful, professional development now every day that they can tap into. It helps them on the ground every single day from period 1 to period 9, whether they're elementary, middle, or high school teachers. And I'm thankful for that, right? And I want to be part of that at the end of my career, as at the twilight of my career, but also nodding, like Chris says, to the young teachers as a profession, that they have to understand that they are the stewards of bringing in a new revelation of physical education and health that is the most appropriate and significant for the kids of this generation, right? They know them more than any other kid knows them. And the future professionals of this world are probably the most poised to give the best health and phys ed teaching to each of these kids. Given the pandemic and all that. So, you know when to step back and when to step up. And it's important in leadership to do that. So I've taken too much time of this podcast, this event already, but I thank you so much for having me be a part of this. And I love podcasting, and it's an appropriate thing, and it's easy, and anyone can do it. And we can all show you how. So be part of it, because the profession needs it. So thanks, Guy.
All right. Thanks, Judy, for, being here on the podcast. I'm going to drop you back to the green room. We'll talk to you afterwards. Thank you so much, Judy. All right. So we're kind of getting at that point where we're going to start to wrap up, and we're just going to leave you all with one question. Chris, we'll start with you. Then we'll go to Michelle and Sean. And here it is. What is your best advice for starting a podcast? Again, let's try to keep it under a minute so we can, kind of finish on time. But yeah, Chris, we'll start with you. What advice would you have for, maybe some of our leaders or teachers that are thinking about maybe 23 will be the year that maybe they're going to start a podcast?
As you know, I'm a man of few words. Just do it. As Phil Knight and Nike says, just do it, man. Yes, make sure you have a purpose. Right. Have a purpose. And my thing is before you go into live shows like we do, this is my biggest piece of advice.
Yep.
Before you get into live streaming, do it just recorded sessions. Right. Because any service you're going to use to post it, especially Twitter and all those, but also if you want to upload to eventually Spotify or Apple, it's all downloaded data anyways. You can't go live on those platforms. I mean, you can, and if you are for the first time, send it to multiple people that you trust in your circle, in your profession, to review it. I can't tell you guys, 4 years ago, anything I did, Guy saw it, Doc Lowry saw it, and whoever our president was saw it. It's almost, and same thing with Guy. If Guy did something, and there's still times where we send each other things,
right?
And,
of course,
but, and I'm not saying, like I'm not Shannon Sharp or Colin Cowherd or any of those, but get comfortable to become live, right? And guess what? Something's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. Just stay the course, enjoy it. Make sure you have a purpose for what you're doing for your audience. And if you ever need anything, any advice, hit myself, Sean, Michelle, or Guy up. And I appreciate you guys having me on tonight.
Chris, awesome advice. Thank you. And we'll put you into the green room. Talk to you shortly. All right. So what a show, right? I don't know about you, but I'm just energized, and having Judy and Chris on, the Zag Bomb guests. We always know we love our Zag Bombs. So now, Michelle, let's turn to you now. You're going to be co-hosting in 23 a lot of episodes. We got some really cool things planned. And also you've done, between Shape America and then, of course, some things that you and I have done related to TikTok episodes. What is your best advice maybe for someone who wants to start a podcast in 23?
Honestly, it sounds like Chris, but I wrote it down separately. I didn't do the just do it. I said just try.
That's just okay.
Try and reach out, because there's so many of us. Like it's not a competition amongst us. We are all trying to unite to build, an empire for our health and physical education, profession, and for our kids to have a healthier, active future. So the most important thing is just to try to reach out there. I mean, you're going to gain network. Then all of a sudden you have your podcast friends. I have my TikTok friends, and like people may be like, oh, Huff has this too, but it's just, I like to try new things, and like I like to learn. And the only way to do it is to try. So my thing is just try. And if you need help, I'm here. I'll be right there with you if you need anything.
Absolutely. And Michelle, thank you for co-hosting tonight's Zag Talk Podcast Live. And now Sean, like I said, you've been at this a lot longer than all of us, actually, when it comes to podcast episodes. Mine's been in a condensed period, of course, because I do multiple a week, but again, you've always had to have that national lens. And, when you think about all your experiences, you think about everything we've talked about tonight, what advice would you have for maybe, somebody out there who's really thinking about, this is the year 23 and I want to get into the podcasting?
Well, for a second, you made me feel like a podcast OG right there, man. So I've been doing this for a while, huh? But, to answer the question is you have to challenge yourself, right? You have to be your own audience. You have to be your own critic, all right? What makes you unique? What makes you special behind this mic? What makes people listen to you? Right. What are your strengths? Why are you unique? Why should they listen to you? You have to be able to challenge yourself when you start a podcast, because you're up against a lot of other content out there. And yes, we all have a purpose, right? Everybody has a purpose. But again, what makes your podcast unique? And I think Judy did a great job speaking about her podcast and why people should listen to it and why it's unique. But that's what I went into it every episode. Check yourself. How'd you do? How can I make the next one better? And the next one better? And the next one better? Because you want to keep spreading that message. You want to keep getting more ears and eyes, ears listening and eyes watching. So continue to challenge yourself through the process.
Thank you, Sean, for again that. And again, we're looking forward to 2023 with you hosting another year of Podcast for Shape America.
Check me out. You can follow me on Twitter at Coach Nevills. But like I said, the Shape America podcast, we're going to hit it again in 2023, leading into the convention in Seattle. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
There you go, Sean. There. How about that? There's your promo right there.
I beat you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
How about that, right? Okay. I'm going to go back for me.
Wait for it. I got to ask my co-host.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I got to ask my co-host now. My co-host, Guy Danhoff. I want to hear what you feel. What is your advice, Guy? What's your advice for starting a podcast?
I'm going to break it down this way, and I'm saying that because of what happened 3 months ago with the national meeting that Missouri Healthy Schools had, as well as some discussions that we've had with Shape America and some of the leaders there. We know that this platform is so popular with people today. We know that it's so accessible. It's one of those things, that you can be on your walk, you can be at the beach, you can be chilling out, laying out, getting suntan. There's just so many different things you can do, or you can be in the car like I am. I get a 35-minute commute. I think that your podcast today, it really comes down to your purpose, right? It gets down to your why. Why do you want to have it? What problem are you trying to solve? I know for me, the reason that I wanted to start the Zag Talk podcast live was simply because we wanted to be able to jump into conversations in real time like this, right? Here it is. We're coming near the end of the year. We're getting people all excited about the new year. And I know that there are people that are thinking, what can I do better on social media? I've done a lot of content to that. Michelle and I have done a lot of content to that, especially with TikTok recently. But Sean, when you and I talked, it really struck a chord in me as to, we've never had this conversation before, and I'm glad we're having it. And I think so. I think your purpose and what problem you're trying to solve is number one. But I really do believe this from doing so many podcasts. It really comes down to your preparation. If you really understand what your talking points are, and some of them will occur organically, right? Like sometimes you don't know what someone's going to say. But if you really know what you want to communicate to your listener and you understand what your listener is looking for, and if you can find that intersection, you're going to be very successful. And I know for us, whether it's this show or especially the new show that I'm hosting, the MHS Cast, it just really comes to just speaking in a conversational tone. And that's why, if right now, if you're listening, if you want to ask us a question or make a comment about tonight's podcast, feel free to do that. I know we can see that, we still got some live viewers out there. If you want to just drop a comment, please do so. We would encourage that. I'll certainly show it on the screen, but the bottom line is this is the opportunity. This is the window, and the other thing is when it comes to platforms, I know the platform that we've talked about, a lot of these things are just free. I know for us, in case you're wondering what we're streaming from right now, this is called StreamYard, and we pay approximately $400 a year. This is a tool that we literally use practically every week, or at least I do. I should say it that way. I do with all the different groups I work with. But again, there's different ways that you can do that. And I think, like Sean and Michelle, like you said, I do think that you should have a team of people helping do the planning. I don't think you want to just have it on one person's shoulders. I know that we don't, all of us put together this podcast tonight with the three of us that are here. We spent some time over the last couple of weeks just talking about ideas. What were some things, we kind of divide and conquer. That's another great thing I love about this team, which is why I love this group here. Sean and I, we've been working a long time now. Michelle, same thing ever since I got to know you. And that's why tonight's been so special. So with that, that is really my best advice is just know your purpose, know your why, and really, really think about what problem you can solve by having the podcast. And don't hesitate to reach out to people like ourselves. We're just here to help. That's why we're doing this. You know, we're not getting paid for this. We're doing it because we care and we love our profession and we love the people in our profession. Absolutely, Michelle. And so with that, it brings us to the conclusion of the show. And I think what our last parting shot is going to be, and that is we want to wish everyone, all of you, happy holidays. Certainly take advantage of this time off. I know as teachers, Sean, there we go. Oh, there we go. There's Elf right there. Exactly. So let's just enjoy this time, you know, and especially the time being able to spend with loved ones and family, you know. And yeah, Sean, you guys got it going on. I actually asked my daughter for hers, and turns out she didn't bring it home with her from school.
I actually have matching pants, so my middle school students and I are all wearing Santa hats.
Okay, well then why don't we sing the TikTok?
Okay. There will be a TikTok, believe me. We already have it planned. Preparation is key to life, everyone.
Absolutely.
On Friday, half a day we have on Friday, so we're gonna do some TikToks in our Christmas gear.
Yep.
On Friday. Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right? So
well, I mean, we have school all this week. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Sean. Like you said, I feel blessed. My grands are returning on Monday at noon, and yes, on Tuesday, guess where I was? I was shopping out with my daughter again, taking care of all the gifts. So yeah, I was on the move. I was on the move. No pun intended, right?
He's trying to get my hat.
All right. Well, I just want to thank all of you. Thank you to our viewers. Again, you know, we value your comments. We value you taking the time to watch this. Certainly feel free to share it. All I can say is please feel free to subscribe to this podcast, as well as subscribe to the notification. So as we do future podcasts, you'll get the bell ring, ding, ding, ding. And that way you can stay up to date every time that we go live and we have a comment. Let's see what it is. And yeah, Pam, no, thank you, Pam. I'll be honest with you. You know, again, the conversations I've even had with you, you've inspired us doing this type of content. And yeah, Pam, you're a great leader. And I've been learning so much from you as well. And so thank you for being on this podcast tonight. And so it's about that time for Michelle Huff, for the amazing and talented Sean Nevills. My name is Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you for tuning in tonight right here on the Zag Talk Podcast Live. Wishing you all very happy holidays.
Take care, everybody.